David, I guess what I'm trying to say is, doors are tricky. You're right. Doors are tricky. A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey was directed by Kogo Nada, who did After Yang, and was written by Seth Reese, who wrote The Menu. Not the actual menu of a restaurant. He wrote the movie The Menu, a film that I really enjoyed. I love sinking my teeth into every goddamn course that there was. It was so great. Anya Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, Ralph Fiennes, a veritable cornucopia of tremendous moments in that. I love The Menu. So let's get back to A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. We have Colin Farrell, who also was in After Yang. So Kogo Nada said, you know what, I did After Yang and people liked it, and A24 backed it, and I'm doing this new movie, I want Colin Farrell in it. And Colin Farrell said, yeah, I'd love to be in your film again. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry to all the Irish people that are watching this. I'm sorry. God, they're going to hate me. Colin Farrell is a very good actor. He's actually one of my favorites when he is given material to sink his proverbial teat into. Is that how they say it over there? He just can make a lot of films work when they shouldn't. The Banshees of Inisherin in particular was so goddamn good. He also did Alexander, and Phone Booth really wasn't all that great. It tried to be Hitchcocking, but the whole point is Colin Farrell is very good. He plays David. I'm sorry, David. I'm afraid I can't do that. That's a little bit of a mild spoiler as to one running gag throughout this whole movie. So he ends up going to a friend's wedding where his friend introduces him to a stranger named Sarah. I mean, she's her friend, but a stranger to him. Probably should have worded that better. Sarah is played by Margot Robbie. And after seeing her in Barbie, as well as a few other films, I've come around on Margot Robbie. I'm not saying she's my favorite actress. I'm not saying she's as great as some people say she is, but Barbie was really goddamn good. It made a mint, made several mints, made so many goddamn mints. The Altoid factory staff said, we can't make any more, there's too many mints, they're coming out the proverbial wazoo, which is where mints come out from. That's why they taste so tangy. You're welcome. So basically, these two end up going on, well, a big, bold, beautiful journey through a series of happy circus pants where they revisit their past, and that's pretty much it right there for the non-spoiler premise. So if you've seen the trailer, that's what I'm going to talk about now. I'm giving you a minute. There you go. I'm going to talk about it now. So the trailer pretty much reveals the big thing about Sarah's character and her relationship with her mom, and does reveal something about David, but doesn't reveal everything about him. I mean, there are a few more plot points and things that they reveal, but the thing about this movie is, much like After Yang, there's good elements here, there's good performances, and there's the thread of a story, going throughout it. The problem is there's not enough connective tissue to really justify the few good moments being bogged down and just, sprinkled amongst all the really, really boring moments where it's odd that Colin and Margot, for all their talents, their characters don't have a lot of chemistry. It's like taking the two sides of a magnet that can never connect, and we're just doing this, and it's just not quite working, and they try to force it and force it and force it, and you can't force it. Also, there's this theme around relationships. What has caused them to basically be single at this point in their lives? Has it been just what they've done, as far as not handling relationships well? Has it been all on their partners? What has it been? I mean, what the hell is going on here? Also, the big thing about this movie is, after it was over, I said, it's not big, it's not bold, it's not really beautiful, even though it's some nice visuals. It's just a journey. So what was the point of this? It's a journey. That's enough, which is really all I can say about A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. There are moments that do work. There are a few jokes that do land. Phoebe Waller-Bridge, by the way, is in this as well, playing a character that seems totally out of place with this. Kevin Kline is listed in the cast. See if you can spot where Kevin Kline was. And Chloe East is in this in a minor role. She was great in Heretic. If you have not seen Heretic, please check that out. But yeah, the star power can only carry this movie so far. The visuals can carry it a little bit further, but there are certain scenes they could have at least cut 30 seconds off of. And if you did that with enough scenes, you would have ended up with a film that was probably about 95 minutes instead of 105 minutes. And maybe you would have ended up with a movie 90 minutes, and it would have at least ended a lot sooner. Not terrible, but just mostly boring. And that's the thing about movies, is sometimes boring is actually worse than being terrible. Because terrible you can make fun of. Boring, you just want to fall asleep. 3, 2, 1, and spoilers. So yeah, probably should have said it was in theaters, but if you can't figure that out, look at the apps. Look at the apps as you kids look at. So basically, they end up we end up opening with David talking to his mother and going off, and then realizing that his car has the boot on it, and there's no Homer Simpson with a jackhammer to take that off. And after getting Coca-Lush, just Mountain Dew or crab juice. Ew, I'll have a crab juice. None of that stuff. He ends up basically going to the car rental agency where Phoebe Waller-Bridge is there, and is playing a very odd character. And basically the idea is, okay, here's this car, and it's just these two cars conveniently there. And oh, would you like GPS? What if your phone craps out? All this stuff. So it ends up getting GPS. It basically is just fucking inspired by 2001. I'm not saying it's the only movie to be inspired by 2001, but Jesus Christ, you have the goddamn glowing red. It's fine. It's fine. 2001 did it better. Not that Coconut is a bad director. I actually think he's a good director. I just don't know if his style is for me. So his films end up having parts I like, but not enough for me to necessarily fully recommend. After Yang was okay, but I didn't necessarily love it. And A Big Bold Beautiful Journey, unfortunately, is a notch below it. I will explain why. There are two cars there, and, there's this headshot of him, and also the headshot of another person that we don't end up seeing. And he ends up, basically getting this car, and he's also going to a wedding. There's a lot of rain. Rain counts as a plot point in this movie. And I've seen some other reviews say, oh, the plot's a little hard to follow. Not really. It's actually very simple. It's very thin. Like, there are a few neat little moments, but it's really not that hard to follow, because for all the time travel stuff and everything, Last Night in Soho did a whole lot better. Plus, I had Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomas and Mackenzie and Matt Smith, but I digress. This ends up just basically being something where once they meet at this wedding and they talk a little bit about, their relationships and stuff like that, a little bit. The idea is they're both single, and Colin talks about, his issues, and have you ever thought about getting married? And then she basically blurts out, oh, would you marry me? And who wouldn't want to have Margot Robbie offer to, just marry her? Just bet her right there. Make her your wife. Whole point is that's kind of played off as a joke. And then the GPS takes over. The GPS saying, David, turn off at this point, go to Kiki's Plaza and eat a juicy fast food burger. There's a Burger King. And I mean, it's not an egregious amount of product placement from Burger King, but it's enough to where I'm like, you expected the king, the guy with the scary, is a scary like costume and everything with just the face where it's just the 1,000-yard stare and the smile that makes it look like he's going to fucking eat your soul. He wasn't delivering the burgers, but he's eating the burger. It turns out Margot Robbie's there. So David and Sarah reunite. They're talking a little bit and sharing their love of burgers. They don't really have a lot in common, by the way, and that's actually the biggest thing about this is any mild anything that could kind of be seen as like the opposites attract thing doesn't really work. And again, they don't have a lot of chemistry together. But without going through a ton of the stuff as far as the doors, they end up basically getting in the same car together because her car won't start. And he takes off with her. They end up going through one door, and it turns out that it's a red door, by the way, and it's not even being painted black because the Rolling Stones lied to us this whole time. By the way, Keith Richards would survive time travel because he was around when the dinosaurs were around. So was Zoe Stark, but I digress. Deep cut, nobody besides one person is going to laugh at that, and they're probably not watching this because they haven't seen the movie yet. End up going through the door, and David is right back. David goes to a lighthouse thing. And talks about, getting on the top of one, the tallest building, looking down and everything, looking down on creation, seeing all this. And the movie has a message, and that message is indifference. I'm indifferent towards so much of this stuff because the dialogue sounds deep. It just doesn't have a lot of deepness to it, or depth. Depth is probably the better word, and the more appropriate English word. Margot Robbie goes to an art gallery that her and her mom used to visit. She said she went to this art gallery the day her mom died. It's actually a bit of a lie. And there's this painting of two people sitting with their faces painted over and stuff like that. So more on that in a bit. And then David goes through another door, and it turns out he's back in high school, and he does a play, and he's part of this play and everything, and he basically ends up doing stuff, but there's this girl that he really liked that ends up fully rejecting him, and it turns out this girl also has some bad relationship stuff, and David and Sarah, have, throughout this, there's this one point that's in the trailer that plays out. No matter how this plays out, it ends in me hurting you. And he says, "What if I hurt you?" So we get one where he's singing. I don't know, actually know that's Colin Farrell singing or not. Doesn't matter. And he ends up basically confessing his feelings, breaking the play and all that stuff. And, "Oh, David, I'm not in love with you." And then Sarah ends up singing the song and bringing him out, and then they, play off, and then they go do their stuff. And then we find out about her thing, where her mom died, and she wasn't able to be there in time, and her mom died alone because the dad wasn't around, basically. And, yeah, the mother ended up dying of an illness. And was on so many pain meds, she didn't feel anything. But that has haunted her. And she wasn't at the art gallery. Turns out she was screwing her professor. We get more driving. We get more talking. We get a lot of contemporary music, by the way. Some needle drops, I guess, are supposed to work better than they do. And essentially, this GPS is always talking to them. "Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that, Dave." There is a song, by the way, the song from the opening of the opening sequence of Final Destination Bloodlines. Shout, kick your heels up and shout, "Get the fuck away from the goddamn glass floor." If you have not seen Final Destination Bloodlines, you need to. Unless you hate all those movies, and then you need a reality check. So, the reason she wasn't there is she was screwing her professor, it's haunted her, all that. And she's always felt she has basically run away from anybody that shows affection for her because she feels that if she doesn't let anybody in, they can't hurt her. I can identify because that's pretty much how I've been with relationships since the last one I was in, which was 14 years ago, almost 14 and a half years ago. Oh well, I'm 44. I definitely don't have time for that bullshit. And David also had a strange relationship with his dad. A strained relationship, whatever. Whole point, she ends up going through her door to visit her mother. With her mother's dad, she's telling her about this guy. She's trying not to let herself feel, but she does. And then another guy shows up with balloons and a teddy bear and is talking about seeing his son, who is in ICU. He's born prematurely with a heart issue. It turns out that it's David's dad, and he's seeing his dad, and why not just mash these things up? Because look, they have so much in common, despite having nothing in fucking common. Whatever, it's fine. They basically talk, and he says, "You're a great dad. All I want is a chance," basically. And so we work our way backwards, but not like the Life of Chuck style where it works. This is where it's not that the narrative gets messy. The narrative just continues to get dull. Dull like a fucking, butter knife is trying to hack through a fucking stump, and there's no way it will work. Eventually it might, but your arm's probably going to fall off before you even make a dent. And then there's a door they have to go through together. And it is involving their worst breakup. A guy that really loved Sarah. She was going to leave in the middle of the night because he loved her too much. And another woman, and I swear I recognize the woman, the blonde woman. I thought it was Claire Forlani. with blonde hair, but then I realized that wouldn't work. Even though Claire Forlani still looks very good. Essentially, he says, he pursued, David pursued, and then he got bored. He got complacent. Again, I can kind of identify, but you really need to not pursue somebody if you think that it's not worth it. He was underwhelmed, maybe not even by her, but just the idea of her. And then they're having these issues because there's feelings. He eventually does confess his feelings for her after they take a break, and then they go on top of this hill where they're looking down on the earth, because why not at this point? I mean, why not just throw logic out the window? And he basically ends up confessing that he loves her. But she just feels she's not worth anything and stuff like that. Maybe at this point you would give up, but I guess if something's worth while, you like love, you'll fight for it. I would personally just say, you go over there with somebody else, because I'm tired. And I got movies to watch, and I got my cat to feed, and I got old wrestling to watch. I'm very much a routine-oriented person that would prefer to just do my own shit. Nevertheless, what it comes down to is they're driving along. They hit a deer. They flip that car over a bunch of times. It is a Saturn station wagon, Saturn-ish. It's like a 94. And that alarmed me because we had a car similar to that. And have a car like that now. The whole point is that they do that. The car blows up. They end up at this hotel. And then the next morning, this guy shows up. Hey, I fixed your exploding car. How'd you do that? Well, and why'd you do that? Well, there's still more to see. And basically what ends up happening is because she could not fully confess her feelings for him, she ends up leaving in her car after he takes her back. There might be moments that are being skipped over, but these are the ones that stick out to me, and really it's not worth it to dive into every single granular detail. So he ends up basically back at home. She ends up back at home, but they're under an overpass where they go into respective small homes. Very tiny homes, by the way. I'm not saying that we need to put full-grown homes here, but my God. She ends up showing up at her mom's house. Her mom's alive, but she's also 12 years old. And is just happy to see her mom because she never got that thing, that finale, as it were. And she ends up basically talking to her and says, hey, let's pretend that I'm grown up and this kind of stuff. And she talks about the issues that she has. But her mother says, it's okay to be content. You can, you're capable of being content in this life. At least content. That's really all we can ask for these days. And meanwhile, David gets home and his mother is there, but it's not his mother because he's his dad and he's got to go talk to his younger self that he saw earlier in the flashback there. It's mind-numbingly stupid at this point. I'm sorry. It's just mind-numbingly stupid. He tells his dad, because his dad earlier had said, we're going to try to shield him from that, but we just want him to know that he's special. And that's what he ends up telling himself. And again, this would connect so much better if it felt earned. But it doesn't. And then they end up taking off in respective cars. He takes his car back. And, is this like a soulmate, matching thing? And they're like, that's a good idea. We should do that. Again, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, I don't know what the fuck she's doing. And then it turns out that Sarah wasn't the original choice. Sarah just wandered in there, but this other person didn't show up for the car rental stuff, so he could end up with somebody entirely different. But he ends up with this person that he really, really loves. But she takes off, and she never returned her car. She's driving along and reaches her final destination. Oh, no. But then she's like, is this my final destination? Is this where I need to be? And so David is drinking coffee, a coffee mug on his goddamn porch, his front porch of this very busy, I assume, New York street or somewhere around there, maybe Boston. And Then she ends up showing up in the car and says, you know what? Basically, you're worth the risk. This is going to be, it's going to be tough. You could hurt me. I could hurt you, all this stuff. But you're worth the risk. So they kiss, and then there we go. And we get a very melodic version of Let My Love Open the Door. Definitely not the good version of the song. It's not that the woman isn't talented, but there we are. Yeah, this ends up, that's it. That's it for A Big, Bold, Beautiful Journey. There just isn't a lot to this. I went off went a little bit longer than I planned, but I don't know, I found it really dull. And that's the biggest indictment of a movie, is if it's really dull. So unfortunately, F. I have to say F. Sorry, it just was not very good. And the boredom factor is what drove it probably down from like a B-, because it just wore me down to where I'm like, okay, please end. And it does end. And this will end. So agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Redland. Until we go on a journey that is hopefully bigger, better, and bolder, and more beautifuler than this, that's not a word, happy trails to you.